Welcome to the next generation of gaming with the One Up Gaming Crew. With news from the week in gaming and just some random chatter. With your hosts, David and Nathan, plus some special guests. It's time. For more info, please visit www.oneupgaming.co.uk.
Hi, David here, One Up Gaming, episode 350. It's amazing that we managed to get this far. It's amazing that we've got so many downloads every month. I would just like to thank everyone that has watched, downloaded, commented, liked, subscribed, anything like that. It's absolutely amazing that we've got up to episode 350. This is going to be a different show. I am going to say what I've been playing, but I'm going to intermix that with some of the guests that we've interviewed and chatted to this week. So, this week, as always, please go to our website, which is oneupgaming.co.uk. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Comment, bell, all that goodness. The guest that we've got this week is Joe Dowling, who's one of the founders of the Four Quarters Arcade Bars. Now, he's got a book coming out at the end of May. Please buy this. It's on the Amazon. It's not the Amazon Plus, but you know the book service with Amazon that you subscribe to, where you can actually download the stuff within the Amazon service. I don't know what I'm talking about. I can't hardly read myself. But the book is called Outrunners. It's set in the early to mid 80s. It's got story, it's got arcades, it's something that you guys will probably be interested in. So please check this out. Another guest we've got this week is Mike Jaret. He's one of the founders of Running with Scissors. And if anyone knows that name, it's from the guys who made Postal 2, which was amazing. It's also got Postal 3. Less said about that one than the better. And just last year they released Postal 4. So the franchise itself is like a 25-year franchise now. In 2016, I think it was, they did the Postal Redux, or Redo, I can't remember what the hell they call them now. And that is just the original Postal with a shiny sheen of HD graphics. The Postal remake is quite a simple sort of game. Postal 4 is more 3D orientated. I think it's Unreal Engine 4. It feels that way because it's got loading bits in as you're going through the open world. But yeah, look further through the video, podcast, what you want to call it, for more details of these games, and we talk to Mike. We also have Ross Brierley, who is from Laughing Jackal, and they help they produce and make their own games, and he also works as I should have wrote it down, but they also import Japanese games and they convert them over into English and then release them. So it's Ross. And finally, we had to get him back on. One of the fan favourites. I don't know if he is or not, I just thought I'd say it. And that is Eddie. Eddie Sampaio. I'm so sorry if that's not how you say his surname. I'm crap with words, crap with letters. I don't understand the word, how English works. But he started with me 2013, 20, that sort of time. And he'd have been about 17 when he first started. And he had a lot of opinions. He couldn't write for Toffee. His review he gave me was crap. He'd put the words, like the fonts, what do you want to call it, the size, it's like increased everything to like a 25 or 30, and to make it look like he'd written a full page, but it was like just like a couple of sentences really. But Eddie, it was always good on the podcast, always good to chat to. So we brought him back just to have a quick chat, see how he's doing now, and any of the memories that he had of the One Up Gaming podcast. So that is what we've got this week. You can also download, buy the first 100 podcasts available at audiobooksontape.com. Just search One Up Gaming for that. Did I say the Games Inspired Music album is out? Just go to Google, search Games Inspired Music, or go to Spotify, or go to Amazon, anything like that, and you should be able to buy that. And with that one, 20% of each sale will go to the Child's Play charity. So without further ado, I will have a quick break and we'll come back with what we've been playing this week. But as I say, we are going to have, I think what I'll be doing, I'll do a couple of games, interview, couple of games, interview, couple of games, interview, then the end. So, back in a couple.
Hello Andy, this is Colin. I won't be able to get in tonight. I'm sweating like a pig.
Right, thank you for that. Still David, still One Up Gaming, episode 350 of the One Up Gaming podcast. And we're going to have a quick talk of two more games. First one, The Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition. Now, if anyone doesn't know what the Outer Worlds are, shame on you. It's an amazingly brilliant RPG series. Yeah, they might be owned by Microsoft now, but their comedic timing for this game is amazing. They've redone the assets, redone everything, made it all proper, like 4K, 60 frames a second, made it look gorgeous, and they've really next-genified the game. And yeah, it is. If you like RPG games, get this. Don't question yourself, it's amazing. Other than that, I mean, they're the same team who made like the Fallout New Vegas 1 and 2. So you know the pedigree's there, you know they're a decent team. The next game that I played this week is Advent Rising. And this one, I only played it because it was like on the Xbox, available on the thing. And as I was playing it, I remember back in the day, it was like advertised like crazy, like it's going to be the new franchise, new trilogy, new this, new that. Open world, open space, open story, everything was just massive. Playing this now, it's got elements in it. Elements that are just so far ahead of the time. Some of the design, some of the philosophy of the gameplay, everything is just that next level up of, once we get to the 360, this is what we're aiming to do. But back on the original Xbox, I just don't think it was quite capable of doing what they were trying to do. And unfortunately, because of that, the game just kind of failed. The publisher, was it Majesco, didn't have the funds, the budget to properly push this game out, and unfortunately it just failed. But yeah, that Advent Rising. It's a bloody good game. It's a good game. It's not great, it's not bad. Some of the gameplay elements are a bit wonky, but I think that's because they were really stretching and reaching for that next sort of level. So yeah, again, I would say if you can get hold of it, try it. It's a good little game. And yeah, so that is that. So we'll have a quick intermission and we'll come back with the next chat. So future, I keep saying future me, but it's not, it's past me, because I'm the future recording now. He was in the past. But yeah, so past me, take it away, have a nice chat. And we're back, One Up Gaming, episode 4, no, I keep saying 400, it's not, it's 350. I generally have to have my phone next to me to see what the last one that I recorded was. Because numbers are hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, We have a special guest on this time, so please just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ross Brierley. I work at Ghostlight and Laughing Jackal, where I'm the community manager, PR person, tester, and pretty near everything else at the moment. So, yeah, I've been there 16, 17 years now, and since the PS2 days. And we primarily do bring Japanese games to the West. We used to develop a few of our own, but now we pretty much just exclusively bring over Japanese games or port them over for other publishers to release in the West.
So you must have seen some weird games that have been over there.
To be honest, most of the strangest games I've worked on have probably been Western games, because back in the old days, when I first started, we were also Midas Interactive, and we released a lot of budget games. Did a lot of budget games. Some of them were pretty good. Some of them were.
I'm just trying to think. Wasn't that like Mr. Mosquito and things like that?
Yes, but that was a bit before my time. But yes, and we've also. There's a huge range, lots of racers, lots of shooters, lots of puzzle games. There's a strange one we never actually did, which was a sort of match 4 type thing about octopus balls falling from the sky, and you had to sort of match them. That was fun, but unfortunately we never actually did it. We got a review copy in to evaluate, but we couldn't actually do it. But I liked that one. Had the most catchy theme song ever as well.
Oh, that's so. How many games would you say you've had your hands in?
It's been a long time since I've sat down and worked it out. But when I last did, I was probably comfortably over 150. So
That's not bad.
yeah, I think that was a few years ago, so it's probably getting near 200 now. But yeah, I've been working at the same company since the PS2 era, so yeah, there's been a few. The most recent one we did, if I can get a cheap plug in, is Agrest, or Generations of War on Switch, which released exactly a month ago, in fact, the 24th of March, which is a return of a game I've worked on several times. We originally did the PS3 game version, which was the last ever PS3 game, but didn't have trophies. A little fact I remember, because we had a few people emailing me asking if we could add them, but it wasn't speed. And I also worked on a PC version, so it was kind of like having an old friend back. To the extent, in the second dungeon, when I was walking through, I just suddenly started sort of turning off the main path to where all the chests were without really thinking about it. Just because I was the muscle memory was so strong, I was just, oh yeah, there's a chest here. So yeah.
And I know you've sort of said that you've worked on a lot of varied genres, like races, puzzles, RPGs.
Yeah.
Would you say the vast majority would be the RPG at the moment?
And certainly in recent years, yes. Since probably the later PS3 era, we've primarily worked with Japanese publishers, either releasing their games ourselves, or often more recently doing them for other publishers. We've done a lot of JRPGs, quite a few visual novels, though we've never actually released one ourselves, but it's something we'd be interested in, but the right game has never quite come along for us, but we've been asked to support a lot for other people. Some action games, we did the Way of the Samurai games on Steam, although we lost the rights to them, so they're now published by someone else. but they're still very cool games. Yeah.
It's a scary world we live in now, especially when a lot of stuff's all like downloadable, and a lot of games like let's just say like the Forza games, they only get like a 2-3 year license for the cars, so they can only have the game on sale for like 3 years.
Yeah, in this case, the games are still on sale, but just with the original Japanese publisher controlling the rights to them, so it's their release now.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy working on them.
So
really good character customization.
I'm just having a look in your background. I don't know why, but it looks like Sega Saturn games, but it can't be.
No. It's mainly books, CDs, and a few DVDs. I sort of got my gaming stuff somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm working from home today, so this is kind of my home. Background, home office / bedroom.
No, it looks pretty cool. I don't know why they do look like Sega Saturn cases to me, but I don't know. So what would you say is your primary gaming system at the minute?
Mainly PC. I primarily play on Steam. I do have access. I do have a PS4. I do sometimes play on that, but usually Steam. I'd also kind of like to get a Switch, but it hasn't quite happened yet. But it does look a lot. There's a lot of Switch games. I'm like, really fancy playing that. Yeah. So.
Which I used to have a Switch, but I sold it. It was basically my what to do when I was bored at the toilet.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I found with handheld consoles is I always end up playing them in the same place. I play my PC games, like set up a desk, except instead of playing with a mouse and keyboard, I'm holding the Vita or whatever like this, and just I don't really take them out much.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think my Switch, it was literally, I had it to work and everything, but it never came out. It was just like when I was sat at home bored.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really a mobile gaming platform. It was just like sat at home.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really use portables very, very portably. So, but it's one of those, there's enough games on there, but I'm really tempted to Fire Emblem ones, and because our switch to Japanese games has been really good for me personally, because that's the kind of stuff I love. So I've always been into the RPGs and things. So for me, getting to work on more of them has been fantastic. So yeah, that's the sort of game I'll be getting a Switch for as well.
I mean, I think for me personally, I've only ever enjoyed one, like what you would consider a JRPG. And that was, I think it was Microsoft's, was it Lost Odyssey?
I've never actually played that one. I've heard really good things about it, but I never had an Xbox. So it's like, if I ever got one, that was one of the games I wanted to play, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, no, Mistwalker did an absolutely fantastic job on that game. It was amazing.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it.
But I mean, like, for me, I don't know about you because like you're UK as well, but like a lot of the so-called mainstream gaming press, they go on massively about Nintendo and their games just because of the history of Nintendo in America, like covering like 98% of sales and everything. So a lot of people, it might be a so-so game, but because of all the history and everything, they just go massively over the top with a lot of the Nintendo sort of games.
I mean, for me personally, I haven't owned a lot of Nintendo consoles in recent years. I had a Wii. Before that, my first console was an NES, so I sort of was a Nintendo child growing up. and I think they do fantastic games, but like they have certain styles that they're very, very good at, and outside, for me, that's pretty good. I love the Fire Emblem series. I enjoy platformers, so their platforming games are good. Mario Kart's always a great laugh when you've got some mates round. So for me, they really work. But obviously, the thing about video games these days, I mean, even more so, it's always been like that, but even more these days, there's such a wide variety of things that, you know, no one publisher or console manufacturer is going to satisfy everyone's sort of preferences. And I think Nintendo quite clearly sort of understand what your average Nintendo fan wants, what sort of person who buys a Switch wants, and are very good at homing in and creating games for that market. They're very creative within that space. Obviously, if you don't quite fall into that category, it's not going to work for you very well.
I mean, I do think it's funny because like we've had a couple of people on our team who have been American, and when I mentioned to them that the Master System outsold the NES 4-1 in the UK, they're absolutely flabbergasted.
I mean, it's one of the things about being in an English-speaking country that American history, particularly in the gaming space, sort of kind of overwrites UK gaming history unless you're really into it. Like, it's things like the talk of the gaming crash that happened about the Atari, which
the
wasn't
1983
really
crash.
here.
It never happened here because we had like the Spectrum, the C64, we had all these other things happening.
Yeah, so you don't quite have the same history of Nintendo coming into a field that was not quite in ruins, but, you know, have very much seen better days and reviving it here. It was, as I say, I was a NES kid growing up, so I was a Nintendo kid, but, you know, there's a huge variety of things people have. I knew a lot of people with Segas. I knew people with Spectrums, with Amigas. So, yeah, well, you know, you had a much bigger variety here than you had in the States, I think, in that period.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if you can see or not, but I've got like a stupid Sega Saturn tattoo on my hand.
Yeah.
That was my favorite game back in when Sega was doing the early like Model 2 sort of arcade games.
Yeah.
Like Virtua Fighter 2 is one of my favorites. Virtua Cop,
Yeah.
Sega Rally, all these like fast-paced arcade sort of games I used to love.
Yeah.
And I mean, I come from a generation where I like to have a little bit of anything. I can't sit down and play one game for like 20 hours. I'll play something for half an hour, then turn it off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting to the point now where I don't have as much time to play video games as I used to, which means in practice, if I play an RPG, I've usually got sort of 2 games on the go. I've got an RPG, which I'll sort of have ongoing, and that will take like a month or something for me to finish. And then I'll have, you know, a little thing, maybe a platformer or a sports game that I'm sort of playing just for sort of for a bit of variety during that period. But just, I mean, I guess that's the thing about what, you know, working and all that. You don't have the time you used to breeze through a sort of 60, 70-hour RPG in like a few weeks.
No, I mean, I don't think I've ever. It's like that Lost Odyssey. I think it was on 4 DVD discs.
Yeah.
And I don't think I got off the first disc.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, I used to be terrible at finishing games when I was younger. Like, I never used to finish anything that's particularly long. Whereas these days, sort of, I guess, 10, I don't know, but I've got a lot better at sort of finishing games. like, I think the first Final Fantasy game I ever actually finished was Final Fantasy 13. All the others I sort of played and got quite far into and then drifted off into another game. So that was the first one I actually sort of sat down and finished. And that was probably around the period where I got better at finishing RPGs.
Wasn't 13 meant to be the bad one?
I wouldn't say it's bad. It's not quite as good as some of the others. It's not as good as... I mean, my favourites were like 7, 9. I really liked 9. 12 was pretty cool as well. 13, I don't think was quite on the same level as... Oh, for me, anyway, wasn't quite on the same level as those 3. It was... I mean, I still enjoyed it. I finished it, and if I hadn't enjoyed it, I probably wouldn't. But I think I prefer the sort of the few ones slightly earlier in the series. That's all.
Yeah,
Probably,
I mean, I guess I
my
thought like the random battle encounters.
I mean, yeah, I think that's probably my sort of Final Fantasy Golden Age. But then at the same time, how much of that is I was younger and, you know, you always look back fondly at things that came out when you were like, I must have been like in my teens when Final Fantasy VII came out. It's kind of hard for a game that comes out in the same series when you're an adult to compete with your memories from that era.
I think I'd have been about 18, 19 when Final Fantasy VII came out.
Yeah, I can't really remember when it was, but
Was it 98?
yeah, so I've been about 14, 15 then. So, you know, for a game to come out, yeah, when you play a game quite a lot when you're 14 and 15, it's going to be very hard for a game you play a lot, like 10, 12 years later, to sort of compare the two, because you're always going to have very fond memories of that sort of period.
So, what did you make of the Final Fantasy VII remake that they did?
I think it's really interesting. Like, obviously, there was some expectation, certainly on my part, there would be a lot closer to the original Final Fantasy VII than it ended up being. But in a way, I think it's quite an interesting and brave idea to just sort of take it in a very different direction than the original Final Fantasy VII went in. Because as I've sort of mentioned, you probably can't compete with my hazy memories of sort of 15 and 16, putting it on the PS1 and it was PS1. And I hadn't played a JRPG before that. So, you know, it formed a lot of my opinions of what a JRPG is. I'm not sure you can really compete with those memories. So to sort of try and take it in a different direction was quite an interesting call, I think.
Yeah, I think after the initial backlash of how the game was, I do think that there was more in the game for newer people to get into and to actually hold on to.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the issue with remakes, particularly remakes of something that's so fondly remembered, that you're trying, you know, my memories of Final Fantasy VII are very different, and what Final Fantasy VII actually was are very different things. Like, I remember actually on my big TV a few years back, I fired up Final Fantasy VII, the original, and sort of played a bit, and it's still a fun game. I still enjoyed it, but I was like, did it really look like this? This doesn't look quite right.
Very pixelated and washed out.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, one, obviously at the time, what you were used to was very different to what you're used to now. But also, the preceding decades have sort of, I say, left a slightly hazy vision of what it was like, and it's just, yeah, it looked really cool, and I've got these memories of it looking a lot better than it actually was, But I don't know, better's the right word, because obviously you're sort of working within the technology of the time. And what seemed fantastic then looks old and potentially a bit dated. I think Final Fantasy in particular, because it was sort of pushing the edges of what was done, is particularly susceptible to that. But it's still a fun game. But I do think the decision to go, off in a different direction was a really interesting and quite cool, quite brave move.
So I think for me, my favourite sort of era was the early 32-bit, when they were doing the really cool looking 3D environments that look absolutely janky to hell now, but back then it was amazing.
Yeah. Like, I think it's an era that's kind of hard to go back to, because it was, I mean, at the time it was amazing, but they were still working a lot of things out. And you sort of go back every now, you can see the potential. There's some really cool stuff, but at the same time, it's like it's similar enough to how things work now, but the differences completely throw you.
I mean, for me, I think the biggest difference was the actual controller.
Yeah.
Because the original PlayStation and the original Sega Saturn was just a D-pad and buttons.
Yeah.
So if they were trying to make a full 3D environment, it was very hard to control the characters in that world.
Yeah,
until they came out with their 3D control pads.
Yeah, the control system. And even when they started doing that, obviously, because everyone had to kind of make things up as they were going along, because obviously, until then, it had been, 2D or top-down. So trying to work out how was best to control these things in characters in a 3D environment sort of took a fair bit of trial and error. So, yeah, the controls generally, when I go back to these games, are what throws me.
So I think we'll end this kind of thing soon. I just want to know, because you've been in your job for very many years, what would you say is your favourite 3 games that you've worked on?
First one is Legend of Heroes Trials in the Sky on PSP, which was kind of my baby in that I'd seen people in America talking about it. It's a first part of a very big, sprawling JRPG series, and I'd seen a lot of people talking about the American release and how cool it was. I was like, I want to play that. So I sort of spoke to the boss. We got a evaluation copy. I played a bit of it in work, and I ended up borrowing the work PSP, taking the game home with me so I could finish it. I then proceeded to basically, after I completed it and submitted my evaluation, just shout at every random passerby, "Hey, sign Trails of the Sky!" I'm not sure it achieved anything beyond confusing the cleaning staff, but we did eventually sign it, and I then did a lot of the testing, and I was already sort of handling the PR, community management, and I even went down to the warehouse to help ship out copies. So I was really involved in that. Second favourite one, Persona 3 Portable. I loved Persona 3, and right before the final boss, when I played it on PS2 at home, my save got corrupted, and I couldn't finish it. So to get the PSP version and actually finish the game was great. And it's everyone who's really into JRPGs knows Persona. It's a big series, and to sort of be involved in that as well was very cool. And my third one is probably actually one we did ourselves as Laughing Jackal, Flame Over on PC, which was, and beta as well, which is a sort of top-down squirt 'em up, we used to call it.
Is that the firefighter one?
Yeah.
I think it's also on like 360, the Xbox One and the PS4.
It's been ages.
Because I'm sure I got sent review copies of it.
Yeah, I don't. It certainly wouldn't have been on Xbox, but it might have been on PS4. I'm trying to. It's been a long time, but I remember really enjoying that, and that was definitely the biggest game we ever developed in house. So sort of seeing it emerge from some very simple early prototypes to what I thought was a really cool sort of, as I say, shoot 'em up, but you're putting out fires rather than shooting, and also rescuing people and cats as well. Can't forget rescuing the cats.
Yeah, I thought it was really good, but for me, it was too hard.
I think if we could go back to it, the difficulty is probably the thing we'd look at. Like, it's because it's got a very, very cartoony look and looks kind of almost like it's aimed at a young age, but the difficulty is quite punishing.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So, Ross, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for having me, and congratulations on 350 episodes.
Thank you. You remembered it better than I did.
I've been revising.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello, Andy. This is Colin. I won't be able to get in tonight. I'm sweating like a pig.
David here, What Up Gaming. Gonna have a quick talk about some of the games we played this week. So I will just go straight into it and say the first games we played this week is Postal Redux. Now this one is a running with scissors game. They released this after Postal 3, and
only you can stop the evil.
It's quite a simple game that now that you play it. I'm not 100% sure how it had played on the original PC. It might have been with the arrow keys or something to move up, down, left, right, and then your mouse would have been where you aim to shoot and fire. Guessing. On the PlayStation 5, 4, whatever you want to call it, the game was only about £7, so about $10-ish, and the left stick moves your character and your right stick aims where you're shooting. So in essence, it's been turned into a twin stick shooter. It's a very basic twin stick shooter, trying to speak, and when you're playing it, it's actually quite fun, very simple, very easy to get into. You just run around and it's like you have to kill like 80-90% of the enemies on screen. You don't have to kill the innocents, but you can do, and you can get like other unlockable bits and bobs. So considering this game's about 25 years old, it is still quite a good little game. I would recommend it. I think it's a fun little game. It's not the best, but it's a fun little game, and in this day and age, all we really need is fun. You know, that's what we need. Just mindless violence. Turn your head off and just turn your brain off, and just go into it and just blow things up. Lovely. And the next game that I played this week was Postal 4, and I wasn't sure what to expect because I saw a lot of reviews, and a lot of the reviews for like a year ago were really quite scathing in this game. Now, I remember playing Postal 2 all the way back, years and years ago, and thinking it was fun, but I had no idea what I was doing, just walking around aimlessly. And I got the download code for the new Badlands? New? I can't remember. I apologise. I really should write these things down. I've just got the name of the games I played, not the actual bits. And with the DLC that came out 12 years after Postal 2, I played that, and it didn't look brilliant because I think it's based on the Quake 2 engine, I think, somewhere around there, and so it's very boxy, very pixelated, very basic, but it played well, it ran smooth, it looked nice, it was just a nice game to play. And again, I was completely lost, running around just headless chicken, no idea what I'm doing. Postal 3, I think I've got, but I think I only played it a couple of times, and it looked nice, but it just played crap. A lot of bugs, a lot of errors, a lot of just rubbish. So we'll skip that. And then finally Postal 4, and I remember getting a email a couple of years ago about this game, and I just thought, I don't use my PC at all. I use my PlayStation 5, my PlayStation 4, whatever it was at the time, and my Xbox. They're what I basically use to game on now. I've got a PC upstairs, but the PC itself is just a relic. It is really, really old. It must be about 8 years old now, so that's how bad it is. It won't even update to Windows 11. That's how bad it is. But I downloaded Postal 4, I started playing it. I had a lot of memories back from Postal 2, where it's an open world style game, but this is built on the Unreal Engine 4, and with that it's got a couple of problems with open world settings. Like it probably can only have so much world built into the RAM, so as you're moving between sections of the world, it is like loading levels. It's not like a full 20-second load. It's like a 5-second little spliced in the middle as you're walking, like it just stops, and then it loads, and then you carry on. The graphics, they've gone for more of a cartoony style graphics, so it looks more like the Borderlands sort of series. I don't think it's as well done as that, but again, one's made by 2K Games with unlimited budget, and this, it was originally made and it was released on Steam Early Access just so they could start getting money in, because these are a small indie company, so you have to have perspective in that. And I started playing this game, it reminded me of Postal 2. I don't think it's as refined. The movement of the character, the first person view, and the controls, I was baffled with the controls on the PlayStation 4. Even when I played it over a half an hour, I still couldn't work out how to get your gun out. I could pee on people, I could kick people, but there was little things that I just couldn't work out. And yes, if I paused it, went into options, went into settings and things like that, but I think that these sort of things should become easy. You should be able to get your gun out easy in a first person sort of game. But yeah, so Postal 4, again, it's only about, I think I paid about £37, so about $40. So for a brand new-ish game, it's cheap as chips, it's cheerful, it's fun. I enjoyed my time with it. I think that I do love the fact of you go in there, get given a job, and you choose which one you want out of the 3 or 4 available, and it just, mental things happen. It's just my sort of game. So I think we'll end it there, and we'll have a quick chat with Mike from Running with Scissors. So future me or past me, whatever it was, take it away. And we're back, One Up Gaming, episode 350. And we've got a special guest, so if you'd just like to introduce yourself and just say what you do, please.
My name's Mike Jaret Schachter. I am the Chief Bidet Officer at Running with Scissors. We are the studio behind all of the Postal games, which started back in 1997 with Postal 1, and most recently with Postal 4, which is out for PC and PlayStation 4 and 5.
So I think people remember the original Postal game. I think it was a good game, but it got a lot of negative press just because of all the violence. Did you guys purposely make a game that would be a bit controversial?
Well, personally, I wasn't at Running with Scissors back in 96, 97. I was in high school. But I was sort of around when it came out. Like I knew Vince and Vince's son. Um, I can't speak to their actual motivations when making the game, but at the time, the studio was actually called Rydell Software and was working on a bunch of children's software, like award-winning children's software, like Wishbone and Hanna-Barbera and Sesame Street games. And in '96, they decided, we should make something that we want to play, that we want to that we own, right? Instead of just doing work for hire. So that's where they came up with the company name, Running with Scissors, which basically means to do something that your mother told you not to do. And the idea for Postal was sort of to make a Robotron style spinoff that just happened to be violent. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure their intent was to be a little bit edgy and different, right? Back then, there were no games where you could just shoot innocent bystanders in the level. Like every game was sort of a Doom or Quake knockoff where you're either shooting Space Marines or aliens, zombies, things like that. And Postal really gave you your first foray into just being able to shoot anyone at any time. Obviously, that's not the intent of the game. The intent of the game, obviously, to pass each level was to shoot the hostiles. So you actually are only required to shoot the people that are shooting at you, but you can obviously shoot the people that are not shooting at you. GTA 1 didn't come out for a little while after Postal 1, so obviously the trend towards that type of game was coming up. Postal's been around for a long time and done a lot of good stuff, but Grand Theft Auto really took the mantle there of bringing gaming to the next level and into homes everywhere. We're still this little indie company that laughs at what we do and we have fun doing it, but we're real hand to mouth and small. Whereas, GTA is obviously a household name and one of the biggest media products in history. So,
I mean, do you reckon that a bit of the narrative is Grand Theft Auto, as you say, it was a massive publisher, massive promotion campaign, everything. They probably paid all the magazines at the time thousands of pounds to promote their game. Do you reckon at the time that it was easier for the magazines, because I wouldn't say internet, because back then it was like all magazines.
Sure.
It's easier for the magazines to say Grand Theft Auto is amazing because it's got a story, it's got a world, it's got all this new concept, and your little indie game, it's just killing people, and it's. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah. There's definitely more of a narrative with Grand Theft Auto, but to be fair, Postal 1 had a big publisher as well. It was a company that was created called Ripcord, which was a subsidiary of Panasonic, and actually Take-Two was involved in Postal 1 as well. It's not like we didn't have the backing. It's just that Postal 1 took the brunt of the political problems. I mean, GTA has had its fair share of political problems over the years, but they've avoided what we've had to go through. I mean, Postal 1 got taken in front of the United States Senate by Joseph Lieberman and was denounced as one of the worst things for the kids in 1997, which sounds like an amazing promotion, right? But at the same time, it also terrified our publisher. And Panasonic was like not happy to have anything to do with that and basically took the game off of all store shelves and told us to go away. So what could have been a massive future for Postal 1 ended up sort of pushing us further into the cult and into the ether. I mean, I can't say I'm unhappy that that's how it went, because who knows if I would be part of the company if Postal 1 had been some massive tour de force in 1997. If the game had been really huge and Panasonic really moved forward with making more games with us, who knows if I'd be involved in this product. But I'm here, and we've sort of made it through the years despite everything that's happened. When Postal 2 came out, which I was a part of, I didn't think putting it out was going to be much of a problem. I mean, GTA 3 was selling like hotcakes at the time, and it was no problem. Rockstar had a bunch of extremely violent titles coming out, and for whatever reason, we could not shake the name problem we had. And that was just that the game was called Postal. Postal was such a big problem in the 90s that, 2003 rolls around and no publisher wanted to touch us with a 10-foot pole. And it's not like Postal 2 doesn't have a story. It does. Postal 2 compared to Postal 1 is like an entirely different genre of game. That said, it's still violent and has some offensive stuff in it, but it does lean more into the slapstick humor. It does have what I would call somewhat of a story versus Postal 1, but it didn't matter. We ended up with some sort of boutique crappy publisher that basically got us nowhere, and Postal 2 really kind of just lived internationally. Our international publishers were selling tons of units in Germany and in Russia and in Europe, but our domestic publisher wasn't doing anything with it. I mean, Postal 2, while today it is considered this like relatively large indie title that's lasted for a long time, it didn't really come into the modern lexicon until we got it onto Steam, which was in 2012. So it wasn't for 10 years until after Postal 2 was out, that it really became more of a well-known title. And, a lot happened between Postal 2 being released in 2003 and Postal 2 being re-released on Steam in 2012. So we went through a lot, and a lot of different variations of the company. There was even a Postal 3, which we didn't make and was a total shit show and a stain on gaming history. But Postal 2 really is the title we're known for, but it's not because it came out with a bang. It did not come out with a bang, and it really did take a long time to become what it is today. So,
but I think back then when Postal 2 came out, again in the UK press, there was one magazine gave it like 8 or 9 out of 10, and then another magazine gave it 3 out of 10, saying it's an absolutely broken mess of a game.
Actually, Postal 2 was given a Guinness record for the most critically divisive game in history, and not because it got a 3 and an 8, because it got a 10 and a 0. Back in the day, there was no Metacritic. It was a site called GameRankings.com, and the aggregate sites, one of them, I can't remember the site, gave it 100%. Crazy town, but gave it 100%. And then Computer Gaming World, which is one of the largest magazines on the planet at the time, gave Postal 2 a 0. And the infamous quote in that review was that until they packaged syphilis, Postal 2 is the worst product ever foisted upon the consumer. So we've actually run with that quote for the last 20 years. And worst game ever is a trademark we own now. And we put slightly better than boxed syphilis and worst game ever on everything we sell. I mean, do I think the reviewer was wrong? Yeah, but it was a hilarious quote, and I'm actually friends with the guy now. I can't say he loves us, but he knows that quote sort of went down. And I think that it is easier nowadays for the press to hate on us because they know we use these quotes than what they would normally give out. I mean, I'm not saying we sit around making amazing games. We don't. We really like just making pieces of shit that we laugh at. But the media does not have a great relationship with our history. So
I mean, as you were saying, Postal 3, it's erased from history basically. What made you
Postal 3 sucks.
Yeah.
Postal 3 sucks. I sell stickers on my site that says Postal 3 sucks.
So was it the fact that it was so bad that you guys had to go back in, and was it a 12-year gap between Postal 2 and the DLC that came out?
Postal 2 came out in 2003 and Paradise Lost came out in 2015. Postal 3, long story short, our Russian publishers that had made a ton of money off of Postal 2 wanted to be involved with Postal 3. They wanted to fund it. They had, 100-something developers at their office. They were making pretty high-quality games, and so they licensed the rights to make Postal 3. And we were working on it with them, but only high-level stuff. We designed the game. We had a couple of modelers at the house, in-house. We had a 2D artist that made all the animated cutscenes. But the game spun out of control with the economic downturn that happened in 2008, I mean, the Russian gaming industry just like tanked beyond repair. Every good programmer and artist left the industry. The game ended up being sort of packaged together by much less quality developers over time, and Akela put out what is now known as one of the worst games ever. That came out in Christmas of 2011, and it wasn't until a few months after that that we applied for Postal 2 to be on Steam. We had been trying for 5 years to get Postal 2 on Steam, and Valve just kept telling us no. And then they launched a service called Greenlight, which allowed indies to put up their concepts and the fans to vote on what they wanted to be there. So we threw Postal 2 up there, and even though it got pulled down at first because Valve thought it was just fans doing that, it ended up getting voted through, got put up on Steam, and like all of a sudden we're selling tons of copies of this game, and we have all this money coming in, and we're like, okay, well, we need to fix the game. We need to include Steamworks stuff, achievements, all that good stuff. But once we finished with all that, we were like, well, shit, we need to do something for these people. And we had all these, these modders that were helping us out. And we're like, well, they all know the engine, so we might as well make an add-on for Postal 2. And so sometime in 2014, I think, which, it's 11 plus years later, we have a team working on an entire total conversion DLC of Postal 2 called Paradise Lost. And it came out in 2015, and it's still one of the highest rated DLCs on Steam. It's definitely one of the latest releasing add-ons for a game ever. And we're very proud of it. And it really sort of brought us to where we are today. I mean, we've had a couple of misses since. We worked on a remake of Postal 1 called Postal Redux, which, while it is a very good remake, it just never sold well. We worked on a VR title for a couple of years that just never came out. That's not Postal related. It's called Assault and Battery. And that sort of led us into Postal 4 back in like 2018. So, everything post Postal 3, which didn't help, it essentially would have put any normal studio out of business. Steam putting out Postal 2 really revived us and allowed us to stay alive, and is why we're here today. So,
I know you were sort of saying about the Russian development. One of my favorite games, you probably won't have heard of it because it's for the Amiga 1200, and it was called Cannon Fodder. And they had like Cannon Fodder 1 and 2. It's like a squad-based, really small sprites, point and click with a mouse, guiding your men, shooting the enemies. And it was like a tongue-in-cheek war simulator sort of game. It was really fun. And then the designers let some Russian team make the third game. And that was an abomination of a game.
Sounds familiar. Yeah. Sounds familiar. I don't think it was going to be bad. The original team that was working on the game was actually very good. And the original tech demo was very good. But those guys all left the team, and the people that came in, the game was too big. It was designed too big for them, and they couldn't handle it. We switched to Source Engine for some reason, and it was just a nightmare, just all around. And it's unfortunate that the game never got fixed. They released it. It was completely broken. They did release one patch, which at least fixed a few things and made it so the opening level didn't crash, but then they fired the whole team. So Postal 3 had sort of been sitting in this fucked up state on Steam for about 10 years. And then last year, the DRM that they never took off the game for some fucking reason broke. I'm guessing it's because it was Star Force, and Star Force is based in Russia, and the war, something got disconnected, and people couldn't even boot Postal 3 anymore because the DRM was crashing. So Valve pulled Postal 3 off of Steam, which doesn't bother me in the slightest, aside from the fact that I get 10 to 15 emails a day asking me for Steam keys for a game that doesn't work. So it sort of sucks. I mean, even though the game's terrible, at least there was a place for people to buy it. There are places for people to buy it today. I mean, you can use it. There's a gaming site called Zoom Platform, which is different than the Zoom we're talking on right now, and they sell a DRM free version of Postal 3. Unfortunately, it appears they only sell in US dollars and don't allow many international people to buy it. So it's kind of fucked up, but there's nothing we can do about it. I'd love to be able to say I could fix it, but I can't.
So I know the Postal 2 DLC that you did got massive positive reviews when that came out.
Yeah.
Was that goodwill that you created in that time? Is that when you decided to carry on and actually do the Postal 4?
No, that's when we decided to remake Postal 1. And it was a good learning experience. I mean, it was how we learned how to use Unreal 4, but it was also a learning experience in like, well, Postal 1 never was a big seller. Like, it's well known, but it's just not our popular game. Nobody cared about the isometric shooter view, the serious tone of it. And while we lightened up the tone a little bit for Redux, it just still never sold well. It never sold well on PC. It never sold well on PlayStation. But, long story, Redux was our first foray into console. You know, a company approached us a few years back and said, hey, we want to port Postal Redux to Switch. And we kind of laughed because, like, yeah, sure, buddy. Like, I'm sure Nintendo's going to approve this. And they were like, no, Nintendo will approve this. And we're like, okay, well, it's your money. Have fun. And so they applied and they got approved for Switch and they ported it and they ported it to PlayStation and they ported it to Xbox. And of course, it came out on Switch first and then PlayStation 4. Microsoft, for whatever reason, did not approve it. And that has carried on till today. They didn't approve Postal 4 either. But while Postal Redux is not some big seller, it was our first console game. So it is an important milestone for us that game ended up having the legs it did. I mean, it's been on sale on Steam since 2016. It's been on sale on PlayStation and Switch since 2020. So, it's still out there doing numbers, and it's our only game on Switch. I mean, Switch is definitely not a console that we would even attempt to put Postal 4 onto. But it is nice to know in the future that Switch is an option, that Nintendo consoles are an option for us. And for some reason, Microsoft consoles are not. But I'd like to say that we're now a PC and console developer.
So Postal 4 then.
Mhm.
I'll be honest. Postal 2, I remember because I think I'd have been about 18, 20 years old when it came out. And that sort of game's perfect to me. You know, just the stupid humor, the violence, the grotesque bits of it. It made me chuckle. I quite enjoyed it. But getting older, because I'm like in my early 40s now, I think my PC's upstairs and it's just sat, and it's a really old PC. I don't use it at all. I've got my PlayStation 5 and my Xbox Series X. So I've been out of the PC games for the last sort of 5 years, maybe. I mean, I'll be honest, I think I got an email from you guys, it must have been 2-3 years ago, about Postal 4. And because I don't have a PC, I just deleted it and I've not thought about it since. So how has the game been received since it's come out?
Well, we put it out in early access in 2019, and we put it out in what would be considered a completely unreleasable state. We put it out mostly because we had to. We had this concept. We were originally working on a remake of Postal 2, and then we decided that, it's just too much work for a remake, so we said, let's make the next game. And it got to a point where, like, we needed to monetize, and so we used early access to help monetize the game, which it did do that. I mean, when we put it out, it was in a really, 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 really early alpha state. Janky as all hell, broken, but people didn't care. They were like, this is obviously the next Postal 2. Let's fund this shit. And it did really well on early access. And unfortunately, our heads got too big for the product, and we over-designed and we over-hired, and the design sort of just got away from us. And After about 2.5 years in early access, we needed to leave early access because early access sort of will only carry you so far, and you need to get to that 1.0 release to monetize some more. So we were using early access as a form of crowdfunding, and we definitely left early access a little too early, which we were very transparent about. We needed to come out of early access. We needed to monetize. And so last year, just over a year ago on 4/20/2022, we left early access, and the reviews were not great. I mean, the game was still in a fucked up state. It wasn't completely optimized yet, but like we said, we were honest about it, which didn't impress any press. That doesn't work. But we have been honest with our word, and we've spent every dollar we've made continuing to work on this game. And for the last year, we've continued to release updates. We paid a porting house in Ukraine to work on the console port and to help us with optimization. The optimization on the game has come a long way. The game works on a lot lesser PC now. It runs on a PS4, although I don't recommend that experience to anybody that could potentially play it on a PS5. But as of March 21st of this year, the game is out for PlayStation 4 and 5 now, and we are still continuing to work on this game for the foreseeable future. I mean, this is not abandonware. This is not Postal 3. We are spending every dollar we make on this game. I mean, just like Postal 2, people seem to have these rose-colored goggles with what Postal 2 is, and they think that this 20-year-old game has always been the game that it is today. It has not. The game was very buggy and janky for a really long time. I mean, full disclosure, the game's still very buggy and janky, and that's the way it's always going to be. But it does have 20 years of updates, mods incorporated, and just endless love that's been thrown at it from all corners of the earth. Postal 4 is going to be like that too, and people will hopefully in the future remember Postal 4 very differently than they do right now. I mean, there's definitely a subsection of Postal 2 fans that hate Postal 4 because it's not Postal 2. They wanted a game where you could shoot terrorists, and I don't know, we're not the same company we were in 2003. Like, there's definitely more slapstick humor. The game is meant to be way funnier than Postal 2 was. Postal 2 is a lot more black humor, and while it is significantly more slapsticky than Postal 1, we have definitely gone up in that regard. I mean, especially if you played Paradise Lost, like, you kind of know what you're getting with us. So there is a section of our fan base that just doesn't like Postal 4 because it doesn't have the exact same jokes as Postal 2. Of which to say, I tell them, if you want to play Postal 2, play Postal 2. I mean, it's a different game. We're not making. We were remaking Postal 2, but then we stopped. So, and that is a possibility that one day we will finish that project. I mean, it was called Postal 2x2, and it was meant to be an HD remake of Postal 4, so that we can put it out on PlayStation. That product may still happen someday, but that's not what Postal 4 is. But Postal 4 has done very well, and it's continuing to sell. And now that it's out on PlayStation 4 and 5, it's selling even more. And I see a way more good fan comments than bad fan comments. I mean, there's haters in every walk of life, and that's just the way it is. And we make a very hot button game, so we expect love and hate, and even from our fans. So it's all good.
Well, now that I know it's on PlayStation 5, I will download it and play it. I will just like to say thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love talking to people who are very honest and candid with responses, not the ones who are like media trained just to try and brush things off.
Check out Postal 4 on PlayStation. It's amazing.
But yeah, I feel as though, like, when you're talking to people, especially people with passion, you can have good experience or bad experiences, but people just need to know the experiences you've had. So the games might be crap, but it's still a good story to hear how the games ended up that way. Because they don't want to design a bad game. But
no, nobody does. But I think the biggest problem with the industry itself, and this is, a little on both sides, most of the community has no idea what goes into making the game. But a lot of the industry doesn't seem to care what the community thinks, right? I mean, nowadays, every big game is coming out buggy and running like crap. And I mean, even the biggest titles, right? Like, it doesn't make me feel better overall that AAA titles are coming out in a fucked up state. That doesn't make me think to myself, well, it's okay that we did. I'm not particularly happy that we came out in the state we're in. I'm not even happy in the state we're at now. I mean, we're in a lot better place than we were 2-3 years ago or even 1 year ago, but we still should be further along. But I can sit here and say, like, we are an indie that has a hard time paying the bills. EA and Remedy, they're not having a hard time paying their bills. The fact that they released Jedi Survivor in the state it's in is pretty fucked up. And I mean, the director of the game from Remedy was pretty candid yesterday saying, like, EA actually offered him an extended schedule and they rejected it because they wanted to keep their timetable and not compete against other titles. That's fucked up. They had more time and more budget to do more things. We didn't. And I don't think that's a great excuse. I mean, I feel for the people that were pissed off about how our game was when it released, even though we were upfront and we've gone on to fix a lot of those problems. I feel for them. The bigger companies don't seem to care. I mean, Cyberpunk came out in a terrible state. Fucking the new Saints Row came out in a terrible state. All these games are coming out in really, really fucked up states. And yeah, game design has become an albatross, right? Like, the fans demand the best graphics, the biggest open worlds, the best performance, and those aren't going to happen anymore. I mean, as you see, these companies are committing to running 30 frames per second on PlayStation 5 because they need to keep these unrealistic expectations alive. And it's really screwy. And it's why I really like the boomer shooter industry, because it's sort of bringing back retro gaming. I mean, obviously, it's sort of gotten oversaturated, but retro gaming allows for much cooler games to happen with very low demand on specs and graphics, and they can run on any computer. I mean, we're getting new games in the build engine. Like, that's crazy, and I love it. But, you know, in the mainstream here, like, people really want these big AAA titles, and they're getting really pissed off that they're buying these games for what is insane base prices. I mean, I just bought Jedi Survivor. It cost me $76, and I just bought the base level game, which is crazy. I mean, I get hate mail every day talking about how $40 is too much to charge for Postal 4 because it's been out for a year. And I'm like, actually, it just came out on PlayStation. It's a new game on PlayStation, and it's only $40. You could go buy Jedi Survivor, which is $70, and it has its fair share of problems. So, like, you're not gonna make everybody happy, but you just hope that you make, you know, the main core group of fans happy, and I think we've done that very well. You know, this is a 25-year-old brand at this point, almost 26-year-old brand at this point. So it's been a long, windy, hilly road, but we're still here and we're still having fun.
So everyone's got PlayStation. Buy the new game.
Please. Please buy Postal 4 on PlayStation. When you buy it for $40, you actually get the PS4 and the PS5 copy. So if you're on a PS4 and you're planning to upgrade, you'll get that upgrade for free. And I highly recommend it. It's a much better experience.
So what is next for the Postal team? Well, running with scissors, that'll be Postal.
I mean, currently we're just working on Postal 4. We have co-op in development, and we're just constantly trying to make Postal 4 what we wanted it to be at launch, which clearly is a long time ago, but it doesn't matter. That's what we're working on. And it is possible that the next product will be that remake of Postal 2. We still have that other IP called Assault and Battery sitting on the shelf. It's a VR title that we worked on for a while, but it'd be nice to get that out one day. It just needs some updating and to be finished. But that whole IP could use a new game as well. I mean, it's not a game about Postal. It's actually kind of an adult game about toys. So can't speak much more about it, but it is a cool, different title, and maybe one day that'll come out.
So How has VR been for you guys? I
Terrible.
think it's been a bit of a fad for a couple of years. Now it's kind of dying down again.
Yeah, I mean, VR development's really hard, actually. What is already very hard, which is working long hours and burying your head trying to get stuff working, all of a sudden you have to incorporate putting on and taking off a headset, which when things aren't working can make you really sick. So VR development kind of sucked. And it was a long time ago. I mean, we were working on a VR title in 2016 and 2017. So it was really early on, but it wasn't particularly fun. And the reason why we stopped is because of diminishing returns. I mean, yeah, there's more headsets out there now than there was then, but it's still a relatively high entry point, and there just isn't that many out there. So trying to make money on a VR title is very hard. And yeah, we're not completely in this to make money, but a product has to be able to break even for you to make it.
But
so
you need to live. At the end of the day,
exactly.
you guys need to
right.
live.
We do need to live, and living means making more games.
Yeah.
And while I would like to monetize the VR title we worked on one day, it will require us sinking more money into it to get it to that point. So it's hard to say. I mean, we all love VR here, but to this day, the only game that ever came out on VR, which I can say I completed in full and was a great experience, was Alex. And is that because it's made by Valve and it's a Half-Life game? Maybe I'm biased because I just wanted the next Half-Life game. But that's the only game I played where I felt it was a full gaming experience. And it still wasn't even that long. You know, it was 10, 11 hours, which is a really long VR experience. But it's just not a very long game overall. And it's still the only complete VR experience that I think has, given people what they wanted out of VR. I mean, there's a lot of little games that are very cool. One being Moss. That's actually kind of the same concept of what we were working on with Assault and Battery, but it's still too nichey.
Yeah, I mean, I bought the PlayStation VR, unboxed it all, which took ages, all the wires and all the little components, played one lap of Drive Club, felt so ill, put everything back into the box, put it in the cupboard for 2 years, then I just sold it. I was just like, I'm not playing that again.
I know. I have a couple of VR headsets here, and when I get them, I play with them for a little bit, and I have fun, and then I put it away, and I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure talking. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you for having me, man.
Long live the Postal franchise. I love seeing the indie games and the underdogs still being there, still doing a good job.
Yeah, we're still here somehow, and we owe it all to the fans and the people that have bought our shit over the last 25 years. Thanks. That's all we say. We love our fans. We stay in contact with them every day, and we're only here because of them. So
thank you so much.
Of course.
Right, how do I stop this?
I don't know.
Oh, anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
And I'm serious. I will turn on the PlayStation. I will buy that game now.
Thank you for the support, my man. It means a lot.
It's absolutely fine. I loved the second one. I never played the third one. I wanted it when I saw it in the magazines for the Xbox 360.
Yep.
Did it ever come out for the 360? I don't think it did.
Yeah.
But I saw the pictures and it looked amazing. Was he holding like a badger up or something as a weapon?
Yep.
Or Wolverine or something?
Postal 3 had a lot of potential. It just never... The finished product was not even remotely finished, and it didn't get any love afterwards. So there's a couple of fan mods that are being worked on that sort of are supposed to be making it better. There's one that's been in development for a while. It's called Catharsis Reborn. It has potential, so hopefully somebody can make that game playable.
So I think sometimes you don't need the grand opera story. You just need something to turn on for 20 minutes and have a bit of a piss around.
That's what we try for... people ask me sometimes, what's your game about? And I'm like, it's actually a game about nothing.
Yeah.
Like, there's a plot, but it's sort of bullshit. I mean, the game is really just meant to be a pet rock. It's meant to be something where you can take out your aggressions and have some fun. I mean, that's it. I mean, if you go into Postal 4 on your PlayStation looking for like some grand operatic experience, it ain't going to be that. It really is the next Postal 2. And will it live up to what's in your head? Maybe, maybe not. But it is fun. And, just remember, it was made by less than 30 guys spread all over the world with passion. It's hard to make these fucking games. So when you run into bugs, let me know about them. But there's going to be bugs. So
It's absolutely cool. Oh, thank you so much. I will let you get on with your day.
Sounds good. Thank you, man. Bye.
Right. See ya.
Hello, Andy. This is Colin. I won't be able to get in tonight. I'm sweating like a pig.
Still David, still One Up Gaming, still episode 350 of the One Up Game podcast. That's another chat. That's another one done. And we've got 2 more games to talk about. And this time we're going to talk about Crazy Strike Bowling EX. And I believe I played this on the PlayStation 5. I believe. And it's a very, very basic bowling game. It almost makes Wii bowling look advanced. Don't get me wrong, the graphics are really nice and crisp and clear. It's got some wacky anime style characters, and it's a nice little game. It's not... If it was like £15 or more, you're probably paying too much. If it's associated with a brand of anime, I don't have a clue if it is or not, because I've never heard of it. I've never seen any of these people. But yeah, I would say if you can find it for £10 or less, $10 or less, give it a go. It's not a bad little game. It's just not a great game. And next up, Warped Kart Racers. Now this is a kart racer game that I'm going to get it wrong, but it seemed to have Family Guy, American Dad. What the hell's that one with Bobby and his dad that sell propane? Nope, I've completely blanked on it. King of the Hill. There we go. Jeez. And it probably had a load of other things as well, but that's as far as I got. It's a basic kart racing game on mobile, on was it Apple Arcade, I think it was. So it looked nice, it played okay, a little bit simple, and I didn't like the fact of all of the mechanics built into a lot of mobile games. But it looked nice, it had sound effects, it had character voices. That is what you need in this day and age. So yeah, that's that one. So we'll cut back and we'll go back into another chat. So, One Up Gaming, episode 350. Thank you. Back in a few. And we're back. It's One Up Gaming. It's episode 350 of the One Up Game podcast. So it's me, David, and we've got a special guest. If you want to introduce yourself and what do you do, please?
Sure. I'm Joseph Dowling. I work for Four Quarters, one of the original founders of Four Quarters, which is the UK's original arcade bar. And I'm also a writer.
So, about the arcade bar, because I was looking into doing something like an arcade bar, but with like retro consoles.
Yeah.
Where people would come in, pay like £5 or whatever, or £2, get an hour's time.
Yeah.
But it just worked out that it's probably not worth the effort for the money coming in. So would you say your bar is more the drinks and stuff, and the games and arcades are just the added bonus?
Yeah, I'd say it's our USP, but we've always had the philosophy that it's bar first, gaming second. And I think there's other models where people maybe go the other way around, and we want to be a bar that people would want to go and drink in, even if they're not gamers. So, that means good drinks, good atmosphere, and a good game selection. But plenty of our customers are not necessarily there for the games, and all 5 of our bars are very different. So, our flagship bar in Elephant and Castle is packed to the rafters with consoles and arcades. It's got 30 arcade machines. But the site in Hackney's got a big outdoor beer garden where in the summer maybe might be 100 people out in that beer garden, and a lot of those people aren't that interested, if at all interested, in the games angle. We're talking about other models. I mean, Arcade Club are the obvious ones. They do a paid entry model of £10 or whatever, and the bar is less important for them. But it's always been bar first for us.
So, do you ever sell the old arcades and put the money into new arcades, or do you just collect everything that you've got?
Well, we probably are a bit too much on the side of hoarding, but we're trying to get better at that. So we do trade a bit. Our arcade engineer Tom, he works full time on that side of the business, and we do a bit of trading. I mean, our mindset a few years ago was don't sell anything, but now, just because we're running out of space, we would like to try and get new machines in, and it's a bit of a one in, one out policy at times now, just because we've got a lot of machines that maybe aren't that attractive to our customer base because they're maybe a bit too difficult, or machines we've had a bit of technical problems with that aren't maybe durable enough for the rigors of being on a site where everyone's drinking and smashing the controllers and not being as gentle as you might hope if you've got your pristine arcade cab that you don't want a scratch on.
So, I mean, if you know anyone that might be selling either a Ridge Racer or a Sega Rally or a Virtua Fighter 2 cab, I'd be very interested.
Well, I think we've got a Virtua Fighter 2, we've got all those machines, but I don't think they're the ones we'd want to get rid of. I mean, Twin Racers they're just such popular machines, and we'd love to get more of those, I think. But upright single-player Sega Rally, they come up quite a bit, so you shouldn't have too much trouble getting one of them or a Daytona. But Virtua Fighter 2, I think they come up. But the sit-down, you need a lot of space for those. The old twin racers.
But I mean, I was interested in the arcade one-ups, but there's hardly any of them in the UK. A lot of them are just American only.
Right, I'm not too familiar with that, unfortunately.
We'll carry on. So, so you've wrote a book, and now you've got. Is it your second one? You're getting ready.
It is. I've got a dystopian thriller out on a small press from America called Mandate 13. But what will be much more of interest to your listeners will be my book I'm about to release, which is a self-published book called The Outrunners, which is heavily video games influenced. It's actually the first novel I wrote, but I've finally got around to polishing it and making it fit for consumption. And it's set in 1983 in the golden age of video games in San Jose. It's a coming-of-age story about a snarky English goth who moves to California when her dad gets a job at Atari, and the three boys who are essentially her suitors. And it's a coming-of-age story, but the arcades feature very heavily. The climax of the story involves a big arcade Olympiad where the three, some of the boys are competing on various arcade machines, and it's a constant presence throughout the story. Is that sort of classic arcades, the music of the time, the movies of the time. So it's quite a nostalgia piece.
So, have you sort of like got the arcades period correct, sort of thing? So it'd be like the late 70s, early 80s arcades in there, or have you added a couple more? Just
well, I'm pretty fastidious with my research. I'd like to think I haven't made any mistakes. My only problem I've hit with this is because the characters, they're much more skilled than I am. They're more on your Billy Mitchell level than your Joe Dowling level of ability. So I haven't got anywhere near the skill level my characters have. So hopefully I haven't messed up with any of the intricacies, because like I say, the games do feature quite heavily. Defender, Tron, Pac-Man, Missile Command, Robotron, all these classics, and I've got to say I'm not brilliant at any of these games, so I probably wouldn't be threatening the high scoreboards even on any of those games, as much as I love to play a lot of them. But no, I've definitely researched all the dates, and there shouldn't be any inaccuracies there. Star Wars, the Star Wars sit-down cab is featured in the book, and that's like a new arrival, and everyone's like, look at this, the Holy Grail. And then later in the book, what is it? The laser Gauntlet, the Laserdisc game has just been released, so it should all be consistent with the dates.
Yeah. Did you ever think of changing it to the late 80s so you could have Sega's Racer Outrunners in there?
Well, not specifically. I mean, I'm potentially writing a follow-up that would be set in the mid-90s, so I can do a bit more of that era. But, I mean, you're singing off my hymn sheet. Late 80s is my era too, in terms of, I think that was when there was the biggest excitement around arcades, because they were just so much better than the home console. So you're probably a similar age to me. Your mind was just blown away by these games. I remember stepping into my local minicab office, which is where I discovered a lot of arcades, and seeing these machines. I had a little Spectrum at home or whatever, some a tape computer, and just the difference. It was later into the 90s. Obviously, the home computers caught up and exceeded in many respects what was in the arcades. But back then, if you wanted to get that experience, you had to go and put your 10p or your 20p's in and play it in the arcades.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, the 4-player co-op one.
Yeah.
Me and my brother on a holiday at Blue Dolphin. We'd have been about 9, 10.
Yeah.
And we were just putting 20p after 20p in that machine.
Relentless. And that was like 20p wasn't nothing back then, Like Turtles is a staple at all our bars. Everyone loves that 90s IP. But I know exactly what you mean. And for me, it was Operation Wolf. I remember playing that at an arcade in Broadstairs, and just I could never get past the second level. I still can't get past the bloody jungle level. But I just spent all my pocket money there. And then when I discovered arcades, I think it was Pole Position was the one that really grabbed me, and it was 10p. I just put my £1.50 pocket money in that, and I'd never get past the first race, but it was just so much fun. And then they started introducing machines like Smash TV, which was 20p a go, and the credit would last like a minute. So yeah, 20p when you've got like a couple of quid pocket money, it doesn't last very long. And then the 50p games, oh my god.
I mean, I think for me, my eyes opened when Sega first introduced like the Model 2 arcade board. Yeah. So Daytona, Virtua Fighter 2, Sega Rally, all these sort of classics. And I think they were £1 ago.
Wow, yeah. I suppose they couldn't be. I remember by that point I'd probably stopped paying attention. I remember when NBA Jam was 50p a credit, and that would have been in like 1995, and 50p a credit, and you needed like 8 credits just to play a game. It's like, yeah, you're getting out of the realms of affordability now. But so that would be sort of early mid 90s. You're talking with the.
I think about 94 to 96, that sort of. But I think the ones you mean, with the Sega Model 2 board, I think that cost Sega over $1 million to develop. So I think you were paying the tax for how much it cost them to manufacture.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's just Sega through and through, isn't it? They certainly spent a lot of money developing stuff. But those Sega, we've got quite a few of those in the arcade, in our bars, and Sega Rally, Daytona, always popular. And then the Virtua Fighter 2, we've got all those, Virtua Tennis, those interchangeable boards. They're the Crazy Taxi is another one that we use. But yeah, I think I'd stopped following the arcades at that point, and and then obviously PlayStation came along, and suddenly you could get that same experience at home. It was a total game changer. I think that dovetails quite well with the decline of arcades, because who's going to go and pump pound coins into something that you can almost copy with your PlayStation at home for £30 or whatever it costs.
But I don't know about you, but where I lived up, because I'm from the northeast of England, and up here, there was no arcades, no arcade bars, no. We had to travel to either like a holiday resort, or it was like going down to Leeds and lower where there'd be some arcades.
Well,
So I never really got a chance to play any of the arcades in an arcade setting.
Did Whitley Bay not have a good arcade scene?
Yeah, that's still about 2.5 hours from me.
Okay, well, fair enough. I'm in the same boat, really. For me, I was lucky enough to have this minicab office. Like I said, this minicab office that always had 4 or 5 arcade machines in, and that was what captured me, you know. And then I guess there was a few machines in the bowling alley or whatever. But yeah, the real arcades were all down on the coast. So Ramsgate, Broadstairs, you know, all those places. Margate, just Brighton at the time. But I think that, yeah, stepping into those places was amazing because you'd just be like 100 machines rather than 3 or 4. So yeah, it was a very rare treat.
I can just imagine the smoke-filled halls. Yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely of its time. But, yeah, this is definitely something I've tried to capture in my book. You know, those arcades, sticky carpeted arcades with smoke and just general ambience of flashing lights and all the noises. Evoke that exact memory.
So you say that you're self-publishing this book, the new one. If you don't mind, what is the process of self-publishing?
Well, this work, I've not got massive expectations for this because, like I said, it's pretty much the first thing I wrote of any substantial length, and I think it's a nice little nostalgia piece. I think it's a fun story. You can put as little or as much into these things as you want. I mean, with my first novel, we had about a 6-month lead time, and if you want to do it properly, you need to get advanced reader copies out there and start getting a bit of a buzz and getting people reviewing it on their social media and their blogs. But it is a very saturated industry, so you are not going to, unless you've got a huge marketing budget, you're not going to get thousands of reviews. And, you know, it's just being realistic, I guess. But the process for actually self-publishing these days is so easy, which is one of the problems of the industry, is anyone can do it. And I suppose there's no quality control to self-release on Amazon. You can release any poorly edited piece of junk. So for me, this particular book, aside from the writing procedure and getting it read by multiple people and collating feedback, and besides the actual writing of it and finishing it, once you've done that, you need to design a cover or get someone to design a cover. You need someone to typeset it, essentially to format it for ebook and print, and then it's really just a case of uploading it to Amazon on Kindle Direct Publishing, and you can set the date and you can release it tomorrow, or you can release it in a year. It's really up to you and how you want to play things and what your strategy is. But like I said, for this particular book, I don't have that high expectations. I just want to get it out there and get people reading it. And I'm, going to only be a couple of quid for this particular one. I'll be on Kindle Unlimited. Just want to get it out to as many people as possible.
So
I'm happy to advise if you go down that route. And
so it might be different now, but I looked. It must have been about 10 years ago. I think when the Kindle sort of first came out.
Yeah.
And I looked to do self-publishing, and the cheapest place I could find, they were saying that you'd have to pay £300 up front, and then they'd do the rest, sort of thing.
Yeah, there's plenty of these places that will either do all of it for you or do bits and bobs. But to be honest with you, you don't need them anymore. They're just going to charge you more for things you could do yourself. I mean, they call a lot of them vanity presses. They'll essentially release your book and you pay them to do it all, but you're always paying inflated money. And print on demand is the future for independent publishing, because no one wants to print off 2,000, 10,000 copies of a book and then have them all returned to you when they didn't sell. So print on demand, Amazon, the quality, as long as you do your proofing correctly and make sure it's done right, the quality is almost indistinguishable from a normal print run. And if you sell 10 paperbacks, they'll print 10 paperbacks. There's no thousands of books coming back to be pulped like Alan Partridge bouncing back or whatever.
I mean, I guess that sounds similar to like our sort of like outfitsy stuff that we sell, because it's all print on demand. Because if you want to get the products to sell for, like, I can get a hoodie printed to sell for about £15, but I'd have to buy 10,000 hoodies.
Yeah,
and it's like I can't afford that. I'd rather have to sell the hoodies for £20 to £25 and have no outlay cost.
I think it's in many aspects of where we're at as a species. It's the way forward, because it's less waste and it's just more efficient, isn't it? And like you say, you could make 10,000 items of clothing. You might get the sizing and colours wrong and end up. It's such a outdated concept, I think, of getting all, like, back in. I don't know if you're ever in bands, but I used to record my album or demo or whatever and get 1,000 CDs made up, and you end up with 800 copies of your CD at your parents' house or whatever in boxes gathering dust. And nowadays there's just no need, because of in video games and music, it's electronic format. There's no need to create all this waste. So I'd call it a positive thing in most industries, that on-demand services.
So the book, it's not out yet. Do you have the release date?
May the 30th, it'll be out on ebook, and then it'll follow on paperback, print on demand from Amazon, probably a couple of weeks later. If you do want to get your hands on a physical copy, I mean, I prefer to read physical books, but everyone's different.
I like physical books. I mean, I think it was the blooming, was it Eragon? Some stupid sci-fi book that some 15-year-old wrote. And the book was actually not too bad. Then they did a movie and it was atrocious. But I bought a box set with all 3 books. And I read about the first 3 chapters and I never touched it again. But it looked nice on the shelf.
At least you can pass it on to somebody else, And, what was I going to say something there? Oh, yeah, so, I mean, talking in that realm, I mean, with your video games, I think people of our age are kind of tend to be collectors, but nowadays no one cares. They just get it on Steam or download it on the PlayStation Store. Do you like to collect physical games? I see you got your cushions there, which
I
you do like
used
to collect.
To have over 30,000 games and bits and bobs, but over the years, moving house, and it's a nightmare moving all these boxes around of stuff. So now,
of course,
all I really collect now is I've got is it the Blaze Evercade?
Yeah,
it's like a little tiny handheld, but it's got physical cartridges. And each cartridge is 6 to 8 games on. And there was a Codemasters one, and it had all the Sensible Software games on. And there's a Gremlin one which had the Actua Soccer and some other Mega Drive sort of games. Yeah. And I find that quite good, because each game's only £15. And it's a nice thing to collect, and they release a new game every couple of months, so you're not there's not 1,000 games to sort of like try and buy.
That does sound good, yeah. So it takes up a lot less space. So when did you sell your collection?
Oh, it was when I moved. I used to live in Glasgow, and when I was going to move back from Glasgow, it was like I needed money to put down for like the house and everything, and so I just went and sold it all before I moved back down to like the UK.
What year was that?
Oh God, that was only like 2017.
Okay, so you certainly didn't miss out then, because I think that was one of the quite close to where things were peaking out in terms of value.
Yeah, I mean the stuff that I sold, I think I'd have paid roughly about for all the stuff that I didn't sell it all, but the stuff that I sold, I think I paid about £2,500 for it all, and when I sold it, I got about 6,000 back.
Because I used to run a video game shop with Tom Humphrey, who I founded business with originally. We started a retro video game shop called Retro Game Base, which ran in Streatham from 2012 to 2017, and we opened the first bar in 2014. So yeah, that shot opened up doors for us to start the bar business. But yeah, it was a fun little business. But even during that time, the availability of games on eBay, the value of like your Common and Garden Mario Karts and all the sort of games people want regularly, the value completely skyrocketed. So it became difficult to get enough stock to make that a viable business. But I think that was when things really exploded in the mid 2010s with retro collecting and the value. I mean, you've probably seen what the value of sealed games, what happened to that in the last 6 years.
It's crazy. I mean, I used to love going to like car boot sales and stuff, but I think now people know how much things are worth. Whereas before you get them for like 20p, 50p, whereas now it's like 15, 20 quid. It's like,
everyone can check on eBay or whatever, but back then, this is it, sort of early, from 2000 onwards, if you think the value of all those 90s consoles was really low, and everyone just, I've got a PS2, I'm just going to buy all PS2 games, I don't need all this stuff. People were just almost giving it away right up until the early 2010s, and then, like you say, people became a lot more savvy about the value of these things, and the boot sales, you could pick up bargains left, right and centre if you're willing to put in the yards. I mean, we sold part of a collection for somebody who'd hoarded tens of thousands of items mostly from boot sales, and they bought it all up in that early 2000s when Gumtree, boot sales, charity shops, you could just get amazing bargains. But that era is in the past, along with our boxes of CDs and boxes of hoodies and boxes of books that we were just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's killed it for me, I mean, I don't mind paying a premium for a sought after game.
Yeah.
I think anyone just sort of sees a Mega Drive game or a Super Nintendo game, and they basically just think that just because it's old, it's worth quid. And it might be like
Italian 90 or something.
And it's like, I want 50 quid for it. It's like, why? It's worth peanuts.
That always used to make me laugh when people had we get it sometimes with the arcades, because some idiots put a Teenage Turtles cab on eBay for $2,000. They're like, oh, you could buy this from us for $2,000. I'm like, no, we're not going to pay you $2,000 for that. Yeah, no, completely. I'm the delusional people.
Yeah, it's a crazy world that we live in. I mean, I think people will try to sell nothing for as much as they can get.
But at the same time, there's a lot of just stuff that people don't want. So if you've got the time and effort you can get a lot of stuff for free as well. So it seems to be one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I know it took me a long time because I've got a room behind me, a spare room, and I've got like my Sega Saturn and my Nintendo 64 set up.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a 32-inch CRT sort of classic TV, and everywhere was selling them for like £150, £200. And I went to visit one of my old girlfriend's sort of like family down in Sheffield. And on the way back, I just went on Facebook Marketplace, and there was like thousands that were just free. So as we were driving up, I just sort of stopped at someone's house and pushed it in the back of the car and drove off.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is it. They are, but it will come a point where all our retro gamers need a CRT, and they've all been junked. So it is definitely not as easy to find them as it was. Otherwise, you've got to buy an upscaler and all that. But yeah, it's got to be CRT, isn't it?
And it's like you just want the retro feeling of playing an old game, quick turn on, play the game for 20 minutes, and that's it. If you have to buy the upscaler, the other, it's just too much hassle to get it all up and going.
That's the problem with a lot of modern games is the entry level is so, the time required is so high, and that's so with Four Quarters, one of our sort of cornerstones is making sure all our machines are original with original parts, original CRTs. We don't use any LCD screens or MAME or any of that stuff. So it's really important to us because not everyone would notice, but there is just something slightly different about that. And yeah, like playing Mario Kart on a big flat screen telly, it's not quite the same. You can't even play Duck Hunt without. I think they produced something to make a big screen take the old guns, but for ages you couldn't play any light gun games unless you had a CRT.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can get a decent set of guns now. I think they're for PC now, but I think they're like £100 and odd just for the guns. So you have to really like the games, if you want to.
Yeah, you have to really want to play Duck Hunt.
So I guess we'll just say thank you so much for coming on. If you remind me in a couple of weeks' time, I will tweet out about your book. I will download it myself because I think I've got the Amazon, whatever it's called. Where you
Kindle Unlimited,
Kindle Prime or whatever hell it is. And so I'll download the book, and I wish you all the best in that, and with the barcade sort of future.
Beautiful. If you're up in Newcastle, we've recently opened our 5th bar in Newcastle city centre on Dean Street. So hopefully you get a chance to go up and visit there. And if you go up there, let me know, and I'll let the guys know to look after you. We've got some great machines there.
But hopefully you'll have Virtua Cop, because I love Virtua Cop. You need Ridge Racer, Sega Rally, Virtua Cop, and Virtua Fighter 2.
We've got all those machines in one of our bars, but I don't know if any of them are in Newcastle. I think at least one of those will be. But I'll dig out the list and send it to you.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Again,
pleasure.
I wish you all the best with the book.
Cheers. And hope the rest of the special episode goes well. And that you
So do I. It's going to be a long one, but it's going to be fun.
Brilliant. Take care, David.
All right, and thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, Andy. This is Colin. I won't be able to get in tonight. I'm sweating like a pig.
Still me, still David, still One Up Gaming, episode 350. So thank you, Joe, for that. And we'll just have a quick talk of a couple of games that I played this week. First one, Toaga, Among Shadows, and the intro was really nice cartoon animation, special, looked amazing, and then the game came on. Now I think this started off as an Apple Arcade or an iOS sort of game. So I mean, I didn't know what to expect. From the screenshots, it looked like a gorgeous 2D platform game. But when I sort of loaded it up, you're stood on top of like a little mountain in the middle of the screen, like a hill, and enemies come at you from all sides, and you have to control the arrow to shoot all the enemies before they hit the little guy. So I'd have a guess that the iOS game, as you were stood in the middle of the screen, you were tapping the enemies around him to try and destroy them, and then the animation would carry on with the story. So it probably plays better on the iOS than it would do on the Xbox, because the controls with the sticks are a bit fiddly. It still looked gorgeous, but I just didn't think it was the best it could be for an Xbox game. The next game that I played, Kinetica, and this one is from Sony's is it Santa Monica studio? I think it's one who did God of War. And this one is a futuristic racing game. So imagine like Wipeout or F-Zero, that sort of thing. But you were actually wearing the suit and could like transform me kind of thing into, like, you look like a robot with wheels on the arms, and you like lean down and you go, and you can do stunts and you can flip around and stuff. It's actually not bad. It's an old PS2 game that's been brought back out on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and they've got it to run at a full 1080p with 60 frames a second, so that's really nice. The controls and the handling of the vehicles weren't the best. The stunts I couldn't quite work out, so if you want a futuristic racer, Wipeout is the one to go for the PlayStation. Although this is very novel, very different, and I did enjoy what I played. So that is that. And I guess we will just say we will go and have a chat now with our old friend Eddie. So thank you, and we're back after this chat. So, One Up Gaming back again, episode 350. If people don't remember, which I can't remember, the last time I saw this young lad, he was almost bald and was like a skinny little 17-year-old.
Gee, oh, fuck me. Wow. Wow. We're still allowed to swear on here, right?
Oh, yeah, I don't care.
Oh, perfect. Fucking hell, it's been about 10 years. It's been about 10 years. It's been a very long fucking time. I have hair on my head. I have dreadlocks now, which is crazy. I have like somewhat of a beard, which is weird. And it's been a long time. The last one of these I remember was, like we were saying before, making fun of Mike Small. No, Matt Small, I think his name was. Just making fun of his name for like way longer than was appropriate. Especially because that was the first time I spoke to the man. And I was just fucking digging in. Christ.
Yeah, they never replied back to my emails.
No, they did not. Ooh. Oh, that was bad. That was really bad. And now look, you got like just still going. That's the thing, you're still going. You're the most determined man I know.
I've got no else to do.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. That was the same back then too. We didn't have anything better to do. This was our thing. This is our thing. I still can't believe it's been that long.
No, I didn't think it was that long. I thought it was about 4 or 5 years maximum.
I wish. I wish. I'm 27 now.
Yeah.
I am 27 now. Jesus.
And there's me sending you into these London sort of little shindigs when you were 17. I had to lie to say you were 18.
I remember that. Those were... I'm not going to lie, most of them were boring as hell. Most of them were boring as hell. I don't know what it is with the gaming industry and not being able to throw an event well, but fuck. Jesus. I hope it's gotten better in like the last 10 years, but Jesus Christ, were they boring. I remember one of the ones you sent me to was, I can't remember the game's name, but it was at Pinewood Studios, and I just sat there. You had people travel there from like hours away for a 20-minute like showing of a game that wasn't even that good, and then people were like, "Okay, that's it. Here's free headphones," and then that was it. That was the whole thing. That was the whole thing. Free headphones, 20 minutes of one guy talking, and then people were able to ask questions. No one asked questions. That was the entire thing. And it was the most boring shit I've ever seen. It was the most boring thing. It really, really was. Christ.
Did you go to a Nintendo one?
No. No.
I can't remember who someone went to a Nintendo one and they said that was rubbish.
There were, like, gaming events are hit and miss, right? They're either incredibly good or just incredibly shit. Like, there'll be like finger food and shit just scattered around, or sometimes they'll have an open bar, or sometimes it'll just be outside for some fucking reason. None of it ever makes sense. It's very like they're very bad at holding events. They're very bad at holding their own events, is what I've noticed. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, one question I do have though. One question I do have. Do you have another me? Because I've been gone for a while, and you must have tried to replace me at some point.
To be honest, the podcast as it is, I actually just record that on my own now.
Ah.
Because I was doing bits and bobs with others, but they were nearly always from America. And I had to stay up till 1-2 o'clock in the morning to do the recording. And I just got to the point where I can't do it. I'm getting too old now. I couldn't do that.
Can't blame you. I can't blame you. I can't imagine staying up until 2 a.m. just to talk to someone about video games, and for half the time it'd be boring as fuck. I can't do that. I'd rather talk to myself. So if you're doing the podcast by yourself, what about the YouTube channel streaming side of it? What are you?
A lot of the YouTube stuff now. We've got over 2,000 subscribers now.
That's good.
And with that, I do a weekly podcast where I do a video of me being recorded. I have the games we've been playing, so I play the video of the games as I'm talking about them. I have the weekly news, and I put the news screen up on there, and I take the audio from that, and I put that up as the MP3 podcast, and I cut the games we've been playing and the news out of that to make separate videos. So I make 3 videos and a podcast out of the one recording.
Who are the people, who else from the past, the old gang? How many of them have you gotten on for this?
I've emailed everyone, and unfortunately you're the only one to reply.
Oh, that does make sense. I do have the most free time. I feel like I have the most free time out of everyone. I'm literally just a student, so it's like I'm not even gonna. What else am I supposed to do? It's not like I'm gonna do my assignment work. But damn, this is. I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't thought about the podcast and all the stuff we used to say and all of that. I haven't thought about it in years. I haven't thought about it in years. So when you messaged me, it was a blast from the past. And now I'm just remembering all the weird shit I used to say.
Well, it's not just you. Everyone on the team. It was. I don't think we actually had. I don't even know if you were there, but we had. Oh God, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but we ended up talking about the African trade in the 1950s for 3 hours, and thankfully it didn't record. You know,
Jesus Christ. And that's when you know. That's when you know things need to change. That's fuck. Wow, I couldn't do that. Oh God. No, this is the serious blast from the past. I've like this is a part of my like life that I had damn near forgotten completely. But it's also like a part of my life where I feel like if I ever run for any type of office, this is getting dredged up so quick. I'm gonna see a lot. I'm gonna be hearing a lot of those old podcast episodes come up because I used to say some outlandish shit. Oh Christ!
well, like I say, we're almost at 3. Well, we are when this goes up. This will be 350, and you must have been on 150 episodes, give or take.
I think I was back when you were on like before you got to 100. I think.
Oh, was that when it? And then I think, because I know you dropped out for a while, and then you came back for a few weeks, and then dropped out again.
Yeah, I think it was. I think when I started, you were on 50 something. I think.
So when you were around, was it Nathan?
Yeah.
Matthew?
I think so.
And then there was the 2 twins, Evie and Mel?
Yeah.
I don't know if you were ever there or not. But then there was a Ryan from America.
Yeah. I really hope those episodes never come to light. I really do.
Well, I don't have them here. Well, they're upstairs, I think. But I've got the first 100 podcasts available to buy.
Jesus Christ.
But £1 does go to the Diabetes UK charity, so that's good.
Oh, no, that is good. That is good. That's good. Oof. The moment you said Evie and Mel on, I immediately remembered something and I was like, fuck. I was just like, fuck.
I think weren't they like 18, 19 when you were 17?
Yeah, they were like a year older than me, a year or two older than me. And I remember, I can't remember who said it. But like, we would say the most outlandish shit and their reactions were the best part. Their reactions were the best part because they'd react completely differently to each other. So one would be all for it and the other one would be just like, no, what the fuck? And it was great. It was great. Oh shit, that was great. That's a major blast from the past. I haven't heard those names in years.
So I think
we had one other guy as well.
Who?
I forgot his name. He was from the UK. Like a blonde hair, can't remember. God
yeah,
damn.
that was Matt.
Yes. Matt. I keep seeing him pop up on my social media for some reason. But yeah, him.
Because I think in all the time that we were, it's not even working together. We were just doing stupid things.
Yeah.
In all that time, I think we only met each other once when I came down to London.
Yeah. It was only that one time.
Was that 2013?
I think so. I think it was either 2013 or I don't think it was 2012.
When
did
it was 2013. Come out? Was that 2012 or 20? No, I think the Wii U came out 2012, and I think the Xbox came out 2013.
Yeah.
So it might have been 2014 then, because I had my Xbox with me.
Jesus, that was a while ago. That was a serious while ago.
Yeah.
Damn.
I had fun, but I was broken.
Oh, it was fun, actually. It was fun. So we should have done that a lot more, I feel like. We should have done that a lot more.
Yeah, I wanted to do more sort of stuff, but at that time, I was living all the way up in Glasgow, and most of you guys were down in London.
Yeah.
And it was quite a trek for me to...
it was a difficult time,
Yeah.
but it was so much fun. It was so much fun.
I mean, I enjoyed just literally coming onto the podcast, pressing record, and just saying, "What have you guys been up to?" and just sitting back
Yeah,
and just listening to some god awful stories.
we would say the stupidest shit every chance we got, and we would never. There was never like a moment of, oh, we probably shouldn't say this, or we probably shouldn't be talking about this, or maybe we shouldn't be swearing this much. No, none of it. That was never a thought in anyone's mind. We were just going, going, going. And God help us if there ever was like a debate that happened, that would go for hours. That would go for hours.
But it's like, I don't know if you ever listen back to any of the podcasts.
No.
Because the recordings were like 3 hours, and I would cut them down to about an hour and a half.
I never.
So I would cut out a lot of the stuff that I thought, oof, that's gone a bit too far there.
I never listened back, and I've never listened back to any of the podcasts, mostly because I'm afraid what I'm gonna hear. Because I don't fully remember what I said. That's the problem. I never fully remember what I said. So if I actually do watch it back, I'm gonna be like, oh fuck, that. That's never gonna go away. That's on the internet forever. It's on the internet forever. And that's scary as shit. That is scary as shit. I would be surprised to see how many people we actually have who used to listen to us back then and still listen to you now.
Well, mate, were you involved in the podcast 100?
Yeah.
The 2-parter, one with the guy from Running with Scissors, from the Postal developer.
Yeah.
The second part with John Hare.
Yeah, I think I was on the John Hare bit.
That had over 50,000 downloads.
Shit. Damn.
So.
Damn. I mean, I would be surprised if I would be surprised like to see the numbers of like how many people listen now, and like how many people remember all the outlandish shit I used to say. Because like I'm pretty sure I had a catchphrase back then too. I never remember the fucking catchphrase, but I remember I had a catchphrase. Something I would say all the time. It's terrifying how quickly time flies. It's terrifying. But yeah. I don't even know what else to fucking say anymore. This is one of the few times I am fucking speechless.
I was gonna say, it doesn't sound like you if you can't say nothing.
Exactly. I am fucking speechless. I really am. I really am. It was a wild ride, for sure. It was a wild ride. It was one of the first. I think it was the first job I had in like a gaming adjacent industry.
Mm.
And it was like my first taste of like those events and seeing those people and like being able to talk to the people that make the games. It was my first real like exposure to that. And it kind of just, for me, doing this solidified what I want to do. You know, it solidified, okay, I want to work in games in some way. And I feel like one thing I will definitely say for a lot of people to try is just like, if you're interested in the industry, start from a media perspective. Because if you start from a media perspective, you learn a lot of shit. You learn who to listen to when there's announcements for games or like news breaks. You know who's going to be lying to you, who's going to be telling you the truth. You're going to know. You're going to get like to see industry events and see what the industry is actually like, and actually get to meet some. You might be able to meet the people not even might, you probably will meet the people who who make the games that you're interested in. Some of them will like banter, some of them will not. Some of them will be interesting, some of them will be fucking boring. But it's gonna be it will be a journey for you. And if you come out the other side still wanting to work in video games, then it's great. But if you come out the other side being like, I don't want to work in video games anymore, yeah, follow that instinct. Don't do that. Because it is a tiring fucking business. I'll tell you that much. It's a tiring fucking business. But I feel like instead of me just talking, maybe I should answer some questions as well, if you have any.
All I was gonna sort of ask is, are you still in touch with any of the people we used to chat with, or was it like a clean break?
Oh, it was a very clean break. It was an incredibly clean break. I didn't talk to anyone after we left. It was just kind of, they stopped speaking to me. I stopped speaking to them, and then that was it. Like Matt, I think I spoke to maybe once or twice after. And I think I have him on LinkedIn. And then the twins, no.
I think they hated me.
From what I can remember, that was a very difficult one. The twins. It was a difficult situation. It was a difficult situation, and I can't remember why. I know something was the only part of my memory from that thing, from them specifically, that I have left is that someone said something. I don't know which one of us it was. I don't know if it was me. I don't know if it was you. I don't know if it was Matt. But one of us said something, and it annoyed one of the twins so much that they were like, that they just disappeared. And I think it was like
what happened. What happened was, as we were recording, they were talking between themselves, but not putting themselves on mute. And I had to have a private word with them about being professional. And one of them burst out in tears. And then it was like, this didn't go well.
I remember that. I remember you telling us that happened. That me and Matt were taking the piss. We were like, you didn't have to make her cry. Oh, fuck. Yeah, that was a bad one. Woo! I mean, better you than me, but fuck it up. And then, wow, so what was the other one? I don't think I spoke to anyone else. No. Yeah, no, I don't think I spoke to anyone else after. It was very much like just after I left the podcast, it was just kind of life back to normal. Which was like, it was a bit strange. It was a bit of like a shell shock, but it was interesting. It was an interesting thing for me.
But I think what you guys didn't realize, it was like you guys, I can't even remember when it was, like every Friday, every Sunday, whatever, whenever we were recording. For you guys, it was just turn up at 8 o'clock, record for an hour, and that was it.
Yeah.
For me, it was turn up half hour early, get everything prepared, get the scripts written, get all the research done, all the news done, and then I'd have to record everything. Then I'd have to save all the files. Then I'd have to edit it all together. So I would be spending 2 or 3 days on each episode. You know, it was getting quite, and then especially when we had like 5 or 6 people on each show.
Yeah.
It was quite hard muting people that were talking over the top of others, and it was just getting, you know, every 3 seconds, like cutting little bits out, and it was just taking a toll.
It's a lot. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make something like this work. That I feel like not a lot of people understand. Like, there's a reason why now you have like these big podcasts who have like entire teams.
Yeah, you have
Like,
the hosts, then you have
producers and
the
stuff.
production team that do all the editing and all the
Yeah.
setting up.
Like, there's an entire reason why there is a team behind it, because it takes a lot of people to do that work. And I feel like it was a lot more difficult because we were all around about the same age. Like,
I'm not. I'm much older.
yeah, you were like, you had to be the adult in the room when the rest of us, we were all around the same age. So it was very much just like we were talking because we're all around the same age. It was very easy for us to talk, very easy for us to like have that flow of conversation. But that isn't what a podcast should be. It should be more cohesive. But our conversations were never cohesive. It was just a topic and then talk amongst yourselves, and then it was just a lot of conversation. And like people talking over each other, people interrupting each other. It was fucking awful. But so funny to record.
But it's like, you think that was awful. I mean, I've had someone on the team since, and we had some interviews, and the guys, after we'd finished the interview, they were sort of like saying the goodbyes to me and all this, that, the other. And then this other guy started talking. And then they were on the phone on the call for over like another 45 minutes after. Because this guy he just couldn't get it in his head that the interview was over, let them go, they've got lives. But he just kept going on and on and on. And I was just like, I'm never doing an interview with that guy ever again. It was an absolute nightmare.
I feel like the issue that comes about with like just doing these type of like podcast things and just doing the interviews in general, the main issue I've found is just like finding people who understand how to have a conversation, how to end the conversation. If you don't understand how to begin and end the conversation, podcasting is not for you, because you're going to be going on for hours and you do not have the time. You do not have the time to go on for hours and hours and hours. And it was something that I had to learn as well. It was something I had to learn. I had to learn, like, because it is weird because this was before the pandemic and everything.
Yeah,
so
long before.
We were talking. I was used to speaking in person. I wasn't doing like video calls and that type of thing. It just wasn't my thing. So I was used to talking in person and like being able to like jump in when someone's saying something and having those facial cues and like body language cues that you can use to be like, to say, oh, I'm going to jump in right now. I'm going to jump in. Or I'm going to quickly say something, that type of thing. I was so used to that. I wasn't used to having a video call. So like the courtesies you have to give when you can't see someone's face, or when you can only hear their voice, or when you can see their face, but they're not paying attention to you specifically. It's that. So then that's one thing I had to learn. It took me a while to learn. It took me a while to do it well. To have that conversation experience of just like, okay, I can say this now, I can say this now, I can say this now. I need to wait for them to finish. I need to see if anyone else wants to add on to the conversation before I say something. There's a lot of like courtesies you have to give that I just didn't know how to do. But I did learn them. It took me a while, but I did learn them. It takes time. Like, this isn't something that you can just like do out of nowhere. This is something that like it's not just about being interesting or having an interesting topic. It's about being able to hold, because like the way I look at it is a podcast is a one-sided conversation. You are talking, the other person, your audience is listening, but you are still having a conversation with them. So you still have to have the right appropriate amount of breaks in it while you're talking. You have to have like moments where like it's not quiet, but they can think about what you just said, or it's not quiet, but they can. It's almost like you're waiting for them to give you an answer, type of thing. very few people understand how to do that well. But I feel like when we used to get into the rhythm of it all, we did that so well. We did that so well where it was just...
We had a couple of really good episodes.
Yeah.
In the 150 whatever, we had a couple of good ones.
Oh, yeah, like we had... It was more entertainment than conversation, but we were very good entertainment. We were very, very good entertainment.
I will just say, though, we've been rambling on a while. I think the recorder's about to finish in about 20 seconds.
Yes.
So, Eddie, it's been amazing to chat with you. We have new merch on our store. So we have little beanie hats that are available to buy on our store. Just go to our YouTube channel and they're on there. So that was it. Episode 350 of the One Game Podcast. Thank you all for being with us. Please subscribe, share, bell, like, all that malark on the YouTube channel. Means the world to us. Absolute world. As always, please go to our website, oneupgaming.co.uk. Please check out our Patreon, which is patreon.com/OUG. If you're going to buy any of these merchandise or t-shirts, these gorgeous new hats we've got, which is like proper embroidery. Yeah, you know, it's all stitched. So this one's got a stitch in there, and it's also got our logo on the back. I'll probably show a close-up of it as I'm talking now, because I'm going to sneeze and it's like, it feels weird. Right, I'll probably cut that bit out. The Games Inspired Music album is available, bloody hell, is available now. So please go to Google, please go to Amazon, please go to Spotify, just search Games Inspired Music. 20% of each sale will go to the Child's Play charity, so please help us to help them. Our first 100 podcasts are also available at audiobooksontape.com, and £1 of each sale will go to the Diabetes UK charity. Please subscribe to us on Facebook, YouTube, as always. Like, share, comment, bell. It means the world to us. And the more people we get in, the more feedback we can get, the more people we can interact with and chat with. Things like that. Watch us at twitch.tv/OUGofficial. If you've got any questions, any comments, please send them to @OUGofficial at Twitter. And if you want to email us anything, it's contact@oneupgaming.co.uk. So it's been me, David, from One Up Gaming for episode 350 of the One Up Gaming Podcast, saying thank you so much. And thank you to Joe, thank you to Mike, thank you to Eddie and Ross for all appearing on this show. Thank you. Heartbleed, amazing. God bless. Unless you're not religious, and just thank you so much. Goodbye.